Welcome to the VHS Vault. I'm your host, Jason, and my co-host this week is Battlecat. Welcome to all. No, there he is, Jason Roy Gaston. Jason, I'm going to be
Yes,
struggling
she
here
just
for a
wanted
little
her
bit.
moment in the spotlight.
That's fair enough. I'm a bit nervous about today's episode of the VHS because I'm filled with excitement. When I get excited, I get a little bit nervous, and the reason I'm excited. I was gifted a treasure this week. I think we both were with this week's
Yes.
movie, Cue the Winged Serpent. Now, before we get into that, I'd just like to remind everyone, if you do like what we do, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be aware when the new content comes out. Cue the Winged Serpent, Jason. What the hell was this film?
It was magnificent. I believe I told you the other day, aside from Friday the 13th, Part 6, this has probably been my favorite movie that we've covered on this channel so far. I loved it. I loved every minute of this goofy masterpiece, this
It is.
guerrilla-styled, accidental, beautiful Oscar contender. And I'm not being sarcastic. It was really good.
It is probably the highest standard of schlock films
Yes.
that there is out there, and it was like when I started. Before we kind of get into it, maybe you want to dish a little bit on the background. What do you know about this film, Jason, in regards
Well,
how it was made or who made it?
aside from being the long-awaited Kung Fu Shaft crossover that we've all been wanting to see, uh, director Larry Cohen was supposed to direct a big-budget movie called I, the Jury, but he was fired, and he had his hotel room booked in New York City, so he was wandering around the city, looked up at the Chrysler Building, and thought that would be a cool place for a giant monster to have a nest. This single thought, and I'm not joking here, this single thought was the creation of this movie. After he got fired from I, the Jury, he decided, I'm in New York anyway, let's make this movie. Cue the Winged Serpent had a budget, pay attention, kids, of
Yeah.
$1 million. That's it. That is all this movie cost to make. It went on to gross a lot more than $1 million, and it is remembered, unlike I, the Jury. So it was actually one of the best things that could have happened to Larry Cohen. Uh, um,
Larry Cohen is an interesting guy, isn't he? Because
oh, he
I knew
is.
of
He
him.
is.
He has a very eclectic filmography and some film roles, but essentially I knew him from It's Alive. Do you remember that little horror trilogy
I
about the
do
baby
not.
monster? It's Alive. I had seen those films back in the day about this little monster baby that kills people, and once because I didn't know. Once I pressed play on this film and saw it was Larry Cohen, I freaked out. I kind of got a sense of where we were going, because he is that kind of different filmmaker. But yeah, I never saw it as a kid.
Yeah, I did not see It's Alive, but I did see the movie, the VHS boxes in the rental stores, so
Mm.
I was aware of it. I had been aware of this movie for a while. I'll save that for just a moment. But yeah, it's spectacular, spectacular. I got a little bit more trivia factoids about the shooting of this movie because
All right.
it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, I've got a bunch of images here. We're going to go through the movie because this is a movie that needs to be dissected as
Yes.
much as, it needs to be sacrificed like some of the victims
Yes.
in this film. And literally, this film opens, Jason, in this really great, quirky scene that I'm laughing my ass off. And I'm talking about the window washer scene.
Yes, the window washer, by the way, named after a man named William Pitch, who was a real Empire State window washer. So he got his moment of fame in this character, who lasted, I don't know, what, 2 minutes?
Yeah, yeah. But what's funny about it is she's like, oh, this window washer guy, he's always kind of around, and what a weirdo, what a jerk. And he's out there. We cut to the window watch. Go, oh, she really likes me. Da-da-da, hey, hey, hey. And
Every man in this movie is a creep.
Yeah, it's just this little juxtaposition of what was going on one side of the mirror to what's going on, of the window to the other side. And wow, what a way to get introduced to this film, because that window washer doesn't last long. It gets his head plucked off.
Just like a little daisy.
Moment, yeah, and at that moment you're like, oh shit, this is a different type of film. So,
yes, just a smidge. This movie knew exactly what it was. It was a monster in the big city movie, kind of like, not Empire of the Ants, the Kingdom of the Ants, I think, the one with the giant ants, and
even like the '76 King Kong.
Oh yeah, it knew exactly what it was, and it was both making fun of that genre and being gleefully a part of that genre, and it's fantastic.
Well, what strengthens this film is 90%. There was one actor in this. I'm sorry, I'll talk about them later. But 90% is really great acting, and it's populated, Jason, by some big names for the period.
Yes,
including,
yes.
These two here. We have
Richard Roundtree
and Shaft himself, Richard Roundtree, playing a couple of cops there. And we get introduced to them pretty early, and I gotta say, there's a chemistry with them already. Sometimes it's really hard to capture that kind of thing in just a few moments. But, you got the impression they're two cops, they're working together. And it's not B-grade acting, even in this early moment. It's some solid line readings,
Absolutely. There's lots of great acting in this movie. There's a lot.
I think I know, and I'm going to let you go on about this guy here, because the star of this movie, most people might know him from Law and Order, the early days, because he was in the first couple of seasons of that. But I'm talking about Michael Moriarty.
Yes, I'm sorry. This man deserved an Oscar nomination for this movie, and I'm not even being sarcastic, because
it's a sublime performance.
He gave everything to this role, and it did not sound like he was didn't sound like he was trying. It didn't sound like he was going for an Oscar. It was just a very natural performance. He had some great highs. I enjoyed him immensely in this movie. I don't want to say that this movie didn't deserve Michael Moriarty, because I do believe this movie did. I think that Michael Moriarty probably didn't get as much recognition from this movie because there was a heavy cultural bias against this genre at the time, because science fiction, fantasy, and horror was not taken seriously. Even now, it's really not taken seriously. I mean, it's getting a little bit more love, but back then these were trash movies, and nobody really expected this kind of performance out of it. So, kudos to Michael Moriarty for giving everything he had to it.
A lot what helps him too is the way they wrote his character. And what I found fascinating about this is that early on we introduced to him as a wheelman for the mafia. He's a driver, and he's got a moral code, Jason. I don't carry guns, and I don't go in. I don't go inside the robbery. I sit in the car.
Is it a moral code, or is it more of a I don't want to spend a lot of time in jail code?
Might be. But what it is trying to say to the audience is, this is your hero. This is your good guy. And what they do with this film, Jason, is they make the protagonist essentially a bad guy.
Yes.
Michael Moriarty is not a good human being.
No, he's
at
not.
all in this film. And all the characters, except for David Carradine and Richard Roundtree, everyone else is corrupt in their own way. Is bad people. So it is like, and that's what I love about his performance, is the fact that he's certifiably insane in this movie, Jason. He does things and he says things that not a sane human being would do. And I am into it. It was so refreshing to see your protagonist be a very flawed character.
Absolutely. And that's what I think makes this movie so good, is that it has layers to it. And, the layers may not be very deep, but they are there. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the movie, and whenever we find the skinned sacrifice victim in a room, it just gives you an idea of the humor behind this movie, because there's a bellhop, a young bellhop, maybe 17, 18 years old, and he's shook. He's just standing like this,
Yes.
staring at the body. And the detective turns to him and says, "You better leave, son. You don't want to see this." To the kid who's already staring at the body.
It's a bit late, buddy.
And, you know, in another movie, I would think, well, that was just bad directing. But no, that was not bad directing. That was intentional, and it was hilarious. Nothing in this movie happens in a vacuum.
No.
Too often in horror movies set in urban cities, and I'm just going to throw out Friday the 13th Part 8, for example, because we talked about that one recently.
Yeah.
Too often in these types of movies, no one else notices the shenanigans that are going on except for the main characters. They will even run up to people and say, "Help us, help us." And they'll be like, "Dude, leave me alone. Okay. I don't know what's going on," as the killer runs by them and they don't notice. Here, every action by the creature has consequences for everyone in the city. Somebody gets nabbed off a roof, blood rains down on the city, and everybody on the street is panicking. What is this? Oh my gosh.
That was a great
yes,
creative way to really sell fear. Don't you think that?
absolutely. And this movie is logical in a way that I almost found refreshing, because too often you will also see authority kind of ignoring this, saying, "Well, you're crazy. This isn't going on." But they very logically follow the clues, and the clues lead them to, there's a monster in this city. And they accept it, and they're like, yeah, there's a monster in the city. What are we going to do about it? I loved that.
Again, I've got to say the writing in this is so good, because essentially what you're saying, Jason, and I agree with you, the B plot of this film is as strong as the A plot, if not stronger, because we get a legit detective story going on.
Yes.
Yeah, a legitimate good one. And, you know, we've just rapped whimsically about Michael Moriarty, but David Carradine is fantastic in this film. And I've seen him in films of that era where he's not so great, but in this, he's excellent. I absolutely loved him.
Q the Winged Serpent came at a time that he was, I don't know if it was personal issues, I don't know if it was money issues, but David Carradine was kind of accepting every role that was thrown at him.
Yeah, I'd say some Chuck Norris films and stuff around that time.
He took this role, I guess, thinking it was just going to be schlock, and the director brought out the best of him. And I really do think David Carradine, you can look at Kill Bill, for example.
Oh.
He was a great actor. He
Absolutely.
really was.
He was talented.
He was a great actor who unfortunately had some demons. And I'm also going to throw it to Richard Roundtree. Richard Roundtree is often associated with Shaft, and let's face it, Shaft is amazing.
Yes.
But nobody really sees him as more than just Shaft. I thought he was great in this movie too, to be honest.
He when you're talking about career periods, he would have been suffering from the legacy of Shaft in regards to getting other film roles outside the blaxploitation genre, and here was an opportunity for him to do what he did in here. And you're right, it was great. But the plot of this film, essentially, what we're being leaded to, we've got a guy that works for the mafia, and they're about to go on a job. That's the whole idea. But we also find out a bit more about our main character, because he fancies himself a bit of a musician.
Yes, he does.
And I don't know why he does, but he essentially puts on, I've got to say, one of the worst jazz piano performances I've ever heard. But what's so great about it, Jason, is I'm watching it and going, and I'm saying to myself, he's doing this on purpose, isn't he? Is he doing this to have fun? So he's playing with his girlfriend, or is he legitimately trying to get a job here? And kudos to the writing, because I was second guessing that whole scene. I don't know if he was legit in that scene or he was messing with everyone.
I don't know either, but I have an interesting tidbit about this scene. The dog that was there was not in the script. They shot this movie guerrilla style, just basically went into places like, hey, can we shoot in here? And they were like, yeah, or no, get out. But they went into this bar. The owner said they could shoot there. They got there. There was a dog there. And they're guests. They're not going to tell the dog to leave. The dog growling at Michael Moriarty playing the piano and singing was the dog's genuine reaction. And they kept it and they put it in the movie because they thought it was so hilarious.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. I did not know that at all.
Oh yeah, there was so much guerrilla style movie making involved with Q the Winged Serpent, which was one way they got the cost to stay down. They would just go out and shoot scenes on the street with no permits, no permission or anything. As a matter of fact, some of the things they shot were the robbery scenes. And so whenever you hear police sirens in this movie, they are real police sirens because people are reporting robberies and gunshots.
Wow, outside that diamond store. Wow, that's interesting.
Absolutely. I also have one other thing that I have to share because this has to do with the guerrilla filmmaking. Now, a lot of scenes were actually filmed up on top of the Chrysler. So the views that you're seeing are real. However, the nest, it was impossible to put the nest up on top of the Chrysler. For one thing, that was a lot of sticks. And two, they couldn't get the egg to fit up there. So they shot this in an abandoned police station. And after shooting was done, they took the egg, but they left all the sticks. About a year later, the director said that there was an article on the front page of the New York Times that detailed about how anthropologists were coming into New York to investigate a mysterious nest found inside of an old abandoned police building. And he said he never told them, he never mentioned it to anyone because he wasn't sure if he could get sued or not. So he kept the secret for years and years and years and just laughed quietly about these anthropologists coming in to examine the nest that he had made.
That is awesome. That is fantastic. And look, there's some, we talked about the low budget of this film. It's a very low budget film, and obviously technology at the time, so some of the creature effects are, dated to say the least. But I gotta say,
they look good.
They look good.
They look good.
I had thought to myself, if you remade this film, you lose about 30% of its awesomeness by fact that you would CGI it.
Absolutely. I think there are so many great moments with this movie.
Oh, look,
the stop motion looks amazing. The animated shadow up against the buildings, I thought looked so good. Now, some of it is cringy. The claws, yeah, that's a little bit of 1950s right there, but it adds to the fun.
It is. This is, like I said, this is A-grade premium Wagyu style schlock. You can't get a better cut of a movie like this. And so there are certain rules and parameters to make it a schlock film. And sometimes creature effects help that. So I absolutely loved it. I mean, look, I even like the opening kill, there's a lot of humour in this film.
There is,
a lot of humour, Jason. Even with the first victim that we get to see, well, no, the second victim, because window washer dude, but the girl sunbaking on top of the roof versus the peeping Tom.
Again, every man in this movie is a creep.
Absolutely. And his lack of reaction, like he seems a little shocked that she gets taken, but he's not super shocked, and he ain't running or screaming to get help either, which I thought was funny.
I was watching whenever it grabs something with its talons. There was an interesting thing that I learned a few years ago in Alaska whenever I visited, and that was when eagles come down and grab something, they grab it and then they crush it so that it won't struggle. And I noticed that they took that and they put that in this movie because whenever it grabs somebody, they scream for a couple of seconds and then they kind of go, ugh, because it crushes them.
Yeah.
That's
thing interesting too. So
the thing in the Alaska story was a Chihuahua, by the way. Don't take your Chihuahuas to Alaska. They don't like it there, and the eagles love them. They said all you would hear was
the robbery, the setup of the robbery. They're going to go and shake down some diamonds. Our main character thinks he's the wheelman, but he gets told right then, no, you're coming in. You're either in for it all or you're not at all. So he kind of goes in. And what I really love from a directing choice here, Jason, is we don't actually go inside and see the robbery.
They couldn't afford it.
But it works so much better.
It did.
It adds an air of mystery. What actually happened in there, you don't know. All you do is you see a a hurt Michael Moriarty coming out with a bag of diamonds, going to, I'm sorry, and I apologise to people of New York, but this is my favourite time period of New York.
Grimy New York.
Dirty, late 70s, early 80s New York. And we get it in spades in this film. But we get to see him run off and he falls over and loses his diamonds, which I thought was interesting as well because the natural instinct would have been to go back and grab them. But whatever happened in there shook him enough that he had to keep moving.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, that's really great because I really want to know what happened in there, but I'm glad I don't. But he essentially is scared and he's got to run somewhere. So where does he run to, Jace?
Well, he goes to see his lawyer because I watched a couple of other people's thoughts on this movie. And one of them said, well, he runs to the Chrysler building for no reason. No, he didn't. He ran in there because that's where his lawyer's office was.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That's what happens, and his lawyer isn't there.
Yep.
He bangs on the door, and it triggers the alarm, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and we get this great little scene of him climbing higher and higher and higher to one of the most random great moments of Michael Moriarty, where he's kind of going, one thing I'm not is scared of heights. Nope, I'm not scared of heights. And it's just like, that's where his crackdown of his personality starts to appear to me. I'm going,
yes,
this guy, all his dogs aren't barking here properly. But it's a great little tense moment as they're climbing up and he gets high and discovers this, Jason. All the flesh torn off the skeleton. And he's rattled by it. But the gold bracelet, which a throwaway moment, actually ties in to the end of to later in the film. And wow, they don't hold back on the gore, do they?
No, they do not. And that is so much fun. That is one of the things about this movie that is fun, is that it's gory, but it's gory like over the top. As I said, this movie revels in what it is, and it's fun to watch.
It's done with a level of expertise that I think the normal casual film goer wouldn't appreciate. Not that I'm saying we're anything better, but I'm just saying...
I'm better.
Yeah, well, as we said, there's so many layers to this film that you could be really extracted. Now, he finally gets up and finds the egg that's from Link's Awakening on the top of the mountain. This is sort of joking.
I love it.
But he finds
I was thinking it was something that Wilma would make Fred for breakfast.
Yes.
It's a living.
Yeah. But it's really cool because you talk about more layers. Not only is there a big bird out there snatching people, but she is a mama.
Yes.
I
like this movie's idea that there are these winged serpents out there that are just out there. There's no big mystery. It's just basically, they're out there, and one of them found their way to New York. Think about how many people go missing every year. It's a smart bird. It gets in the sun so you don't see it, and this one's just in New York where a lot of people are noticing it. I find that very chilling that these things are not hiding. They're just there.
They're just there. And the fact that we don't spend 15 minutes of exposition explaining of the origin of it. Where in this film, those things exist. And the exposition we do get, I really love the mythology of.
Yes.
And before we get to that moment, though, can we just talk about the yuppie construction worker?
Oh, yeah. Who ate my sandwich?
Who ate my sandwich? And
that's the other big mystery of this movie. You got the big monster, the Aztec sacrifices, and who ate this guy's sandwich?
Oh, come on, man. That's a nice jumper and a nice shirt he's wearing. Doesn't seem appropriate for construction work, but he's making an effort. That's all.
Well, they literally just grabbed this guy off the street and was like, hey, you have one line. Where's my sandwich? Who took my sandwich?
One of the... going back to the gore, because this is the next scene of this film, and they don't hold back. Who doesn't recoil a little bit, Jason, when they're literally cutting the face off of their, not a victim, their willing participant? It looks so cool. They were stranded.
It really did. It looks like
Jason.
Gordon Ramsay, like filleting something.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, at this point, we don't know what the hell is going on. We know there's a giant bird. We know there's a victim. We think a victim of no one with no flesh, and now we're backing it up with that scene, only to get, I think, which is a really important exposition scene of David Carradine and assume some museum guy explaining the Aztec mythology.
Tell me
Behind it.
you did not think that this guy was going to be the killer at the end. Because that's
A
what I
little bit.
thought. I was like, okay, this guy's the killer.
I
Nope.
thought this guy, and then I also thought this guy might be.
Yeah.
Because he's wearing sinister sunglasses for no real reason.
That was another thing I
But-
really liked, was that they introduced these suspects and then they're like, nah, it's this guy. And you're like,
Yeah.
who's that? But that's how it would happen in real life. It wouldn't be somebody they'd have met. It'd just been some random guy.
Mm. But you know what I like about the detective role, the character that David Carradine is playing, is that, you know, there's always in these films very skeptical people and all that. And he seems very open-minded. He's like going through that museum, listening to the guy, going, look, I better take some books with me, which starts him on a, you know, what could seemingly a ridiculous, like, lead, but seems to be the most important lead. And, you know, I'm watching it going, why isn't this boring? I hate exposition scenes. I don't like them, but I'm in. I'm locked in at this point. In this moment in the film, I'm like, no matter what happens next, you got me to watch the whole thing.
Oh yeah, it gets you invested. You are invested in this. You like the characters. The mystery is set up very intelligently, and so every little tidbit of information you get, you follow and you love it.
And when you talk about investment, Jason, you're also going back to Michael Moriarty. That's where it gets a bit, just, you know, it's a bit jarring because we're not used to it as film goers. The fact we start to see the cracks in his personality when he does come back and start to, you know, have his interaction with his girlfriend. He's a bit of an abuser, and really, you know, well, he is an abuser who's created a very toxic relationship. So all of a sudden, we're getting those shades of grey really painted on him. And it just makes him a more intriguing character. Not in a good way, but he's intriguing, you know, which I absolutely love, you know. So we're getting to... and, you know, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, how does he play a major role in this film? Because this film is really about a wise guy who's just come across this giant bird's nest. But, yeah. Now, moving on to the next moment I wanted to talk about was... Ooga Booga from Crash Bandicoot making an appearance.
Blah, blah, blah.
Ooga Booga. I think this is the moment where we realise, which it comes straight after that museum, which I love, is the victims are not victims of all. They give themselves willingly. Because if they don't, then the gods won't accept the sacrifice.
Yes.
And I thought that was a cool thing because the standard B movie would just, you know, don't kill me, and they would kill them. But no, each person is getting on that bench willingly wanting it to happen. And it just adds to the macabre darkness of it all so well.
Yes, I really enjoyed that bit. And it sets up a wonderful joke later in the movie that I'm not going to spoil yet.
No.
I really enjoy how this is almost a monster movie that is also a slice of life movie, because it just seems like you're watching these characters go through their day and there just happens to be a monster somewhere.
Yeah.
But it works, and all of these disparate elements eventually start coming together, and that's another thing about this movie that I found completely enjoyable, because like I said, I hadn't watched this thing since I was itty bitty. But I enjoyed watching these plot threads weave together in ways that I had not anticipated. Not once did I ever think that Michael Moriarty would end up with the most power in the story at one point. Never occurred to me. And then when he does, I'm watching it going, whoa, what?
Whoa.
What?
He's making his move.
Yeah, and it was smart. That's something I love about this movie, is these characters are not dumb. They're smart, and they take advantage of the situation, and it's just thoroughly enjoyable.
even the cop scenes, mind you, in the most expensive captain's office I've ever seen.
Absolutely. Well, you know,
how
this
many
was
captain's
probably
offices have chandeliers hanging
this
down?
was probably the lobby of a Hilton somewhere.
Yeah. But it's a great scene when they're starting to figure it out, and really their pathway is they think they're on the hunt for a serial killer. You know, which is in the early 80s, late 70s, you know, serial killers were out in a big bad way. We had some big names out there taking lives, so
Oh yeah.
it kind of makes sense that they go down that pathway, which I loved as well. Michael Moriarty at this point is really playing the scared kind of guy who's just worried about what's going to happen next. And, you know, I thought the film would be the whole thing of him just trying to avoid the mob, but they deal with it head on with the two guys catch him. And by the way, the mob guy there in the background, he's been in so many of these.
He has, and I don't know his name. He just disappears into every. He's just that guy who plays in all those things.
Yeah. But Michael, at this time, as much as we think he's a bit of a snivelling coward kind of thing, he's smart enough in that moment to go, right, I'm gonna sort this out once and for all.
It's at this point this movie reminded me of Creepshow. My favorite section in Creepshow is the crate, where the guy feeds his wife to the monster in the crate. And it just reminded me, especially Moriarty's reaction to the mobsters getting killed by the serpent was just, eat him, get him, that's right, enjoy your meal. I just loved that. I was just, it's such a great moment.
Even that moment before he led him up to it, where he just randomly looks at, can you believe that view? How amazing is this view? And he's joyous. And I think that's the moment he snaps, because he knows what he's going to do. You know, I mean, there is that moment where the top mob guy gets pecked first. And it's just like, really? You're going to go up there, you're going to leave the guy who could easily run away. What are you going up there for? I would just keep yelling. No way would I go up there, but you got to kill him. And it's a great way and unexpected, because the film is setting up that it's going to be a bit of the main thing he's going to have to battle with is the mob. And he takes care of that situation early in the film. It's not a factor anymore for him.
There's great subversion of expectations in this movie, and it's never overstated. It's always understated, because you believe the movie is going to go this way and it just curves in another. And then you think it's going to go that way and it just curves in another. And it's masterfully written. I keep gushing over this movie, but I don't think people really appreciate how intelligently written and executed Q the Winged Serpent is.
Yeah. I mean, like, the fact that this doesn't have, and I don't know, I haven't really researched enough, but this film should have a massive cult status. Why this isn't playing in independent boutique cinemas on a Saturday night for everyone to go and enjoy, I have no idea, because it is on that level of a film that you could go together, cheer at certain scenes together. You can make an event out of this film.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
And it's demented enough that you could do that. Sorry, I'm having to save things from Battlecat, who's trying to knock him off my desk.
Hey, the creature effects. So, can we talk about the design, actually, of the serpent? Serpent looks great. I know that's a blurry picture, and I've got another picture of him down here. But it looks great, Jace, the design of the serpent.
Yeah, I love it. I love the...
at all.
No, it's like a dragon, horse, giraffe, brontosaurus with wings, and I love it.
Yeah.
That scene there was... Quetzalcoatl. I was trying to pronounce it, and I think I have completely butchered it, but there we go.
That scene there was actually from the rooftop, the girl doing push-ups.
Yes.
You know? And it was
with the most bored personal trainer I've ever seen.
And I thought it was an interesting little switch-up, because I'm like, we see the shot of him flying in, I'm like, oh, he's going to grab the chick doing push-ups. But no, Q the Winged Serpent is not only a very efficient killer, he's quite smart enough to know to get the guy, to get the douchebags first.
Yes.
And again, it goes with your theory that every man in this film is horrible, because
they
do deserve to die.
They are. There's only one man in this movie who I don't think is horrible, and we'll get to him here in a minute.
Oh, okay. You know, this film is populated by a lot of scenes of in cop shops. There's about 3 or 4 massive scenes. And they go on for about 5 or 10 minutes each. And this is where normally a B-grade film would fall to pieces. Blah, 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 blah. Really just filling in time. But every scene in this film, I'm locked in. You know, I'm just locked into it all. And again, the fact that we've got, you know, you can see Michael Moriarty there, who's been held in prison, who... You would think the moment he's in prison, Jason, he's screaming, hey, I can help you with this Q thing. But he's not. He's staying tight-lipped, isn't he?
Yes, yes.
He's just listening and observing what's going on, which I absolutely love. And when he describes to his partner in this great scene to show how much of a douchebag he is with his partner and explains it. And this is where he kind of loses it, that he realises, Jason, he has indeed got the upper hand in this situation to use to his advantage.
And I do believe that is why these cop scenes are so enthralling, is because we see the power dynamic shifting and we see these characters acting intelligently, and they're all there for self-preservation and self-promotion. And I think that's where Moriarty's character really shines, is that he is a slimeball. But he's a slimeball you don't hate. You kind of want to see him succeed. And whenever he doesn't, you're just like, yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah. Again, what great writing. What a great character. And I'm sure Michael Moriarty, I'd love to hear an interview with him, what he thinks of this film, because he just seems to be having the best time.
Oh, absolutely. This movie must have been, I don't know, maybe it was horrible, but this movie looks like it would have been fun.
Yeah. It's
like, we're going to go shoot this scene and hopefully we won't get arrested. All right.
I appreciate the fact when you're bold enough as a filmmaker to make one of your detectives for majority of this upcoming scene a mime.
Oh, we
get mime.
Thank you, Battle Cat. Thank you. I knew that was going to happen. She just jumped up and pulled a bunch of things off my desk. Yes, and this is the guy who I don't think is horrible. This is so bizarre. Undercover Mime is probably my favorite character in this entire movie, because the first time we see him, he is reporting on an undercover sting operation where he is playing a mime, keeping an eye on things, but he is on a public telephone in public with people watching him. He's a mime and he's talking on the telephone. And then in true commitment, he stays in the mime costume for the next, 20 minutes of the movie, never takes his off, his makeup never gets smudged, and then decides to stay in character because he doesn't scream when Shaft dies. He just kind of goes.
They are chasing down who is the leader of this Aztec organization who's leading Q. And yeah, like if I was a betting man, Jason, mine was going to get it over Shaft.
Again, I think that's the subversion and the dark humor of this movie, because the fact that the mime doesn't scream, that was intentional. They knew that would be hilarious.
That's a choice.
And
by the way,
and you know what Shaft getting eaten by the flying lizard comes out of nowhere for no reason. It's so random.
They drop him.
Yeah. Just why? Why did that happen? Who cares? It's hilarious.
Looks fantastic, you know. But you know, they make a deal back in that when they're working out negotiations for the information. Well played, by the way, Michael Moriarty, to get the deal happening. It's a great deal for him. Trump would be proud. I don't know if you want to take that, but either way,
I don't know. Both of them do. Both of them did end up broke at the end.
It is definitely the art of the deal there, but they do it, and they go up, all armored like a SWAT team, go up to investigate what is actually going on up there. To Link's Awakening's egg. So they go to the egg, and you know, Michael Moriarty had specifically said to him, dude, this is what you need to do. Put some canvas over the egg. I remember that because he mentions it 10 times afterwards. But the fact they go up there, and the poor choice of David Carradine to just execute that egg. I don't know. I think there was several hundred bullets in that thing by the end of it. Still lasted a while, that little embryo.
Well, it's got to have a thick shell.
But at that moment, right, aren't you like, you animals, you all deserve to die. You wait till Q sees this. Your guys are toast. And I did like that idea. And the fact that she does find out, and we get this. By the way, the helicopter footage, because there's no drones back then, like, just beautifully, because sometimes those overhead shots for the 70s, 80s are quite shaky, but they have all these beautiful sky shots where they go between the two towers at one point and they're flying around the Chrysler building. Yeah. Great cinematography there.
The days before 9/11 were so wonderful for aerial photography.
Yeah. Oh, such a beautiful city, you know. And at the end of it, we get this great scene where Q comes. Well, firstly, before that, they go downstairs and they think the whole thing's a failure, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they do take the time to really screw over Moriarty's character, which honestly, again, you're kind of like, yeah, he deserved that. But on the other hand, you're like, well, they are really being shady right now. They should give him that money.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he took him, he provided the evidence that they required. He provided it, And the fact that at that moment Q wasn't there, that wasn't a failure at all. I can't quite remember the next bit of why they go back up the Chrysler building. Because do they say, like, we've got to go back up, you're missing something?
I think they just go back up because they know that it's going to show back up again.
It's going to show back up. Are you telling me, what a great day on set, by the way, to be up in the Chrysler building, firing blanks into the sky.
Oh, yeah. In baskets.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure David Carradine's reading the script and going, I'm going to get to shoot blanks out of the top. I'm in. I am in on this film just to do that alone. What a great scene, dude!
It's amazing.
Of Q attacking the Chrysler building, and the big surprise, and I love the most about this, is he's going in, Jason, and he's picking them out of the building. So cool, man.
Those weird stop motion puppets with the arms and legs that are way, way too big, too long. It's like the RoboCop
cool
things. Oh, it's wonderful. I love it. I'm not downing this movie at all. This movie is fantastic.
And you think the egg copped it with 1 million bullets. This thing must have just taken thousands of bullets, And
seeing that look on my face, like, I want to say something.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it was the bullets that killed Q, and that there wasn't some big set piece where he falls on like a spire or something, or they throw a grenade at him and he explodes. I just love the fact that, he dies just because they shot him a bunch of times. It really sells the fact that this is a living organism.
And in talking about layers, they continue with the Aztec motif, because in his dying moments, he's on top of what is clearly an Aztec pyramid on top of a building, suffering and falling, which was, again, majestic. In fact, I'm watching it and going, I'm not fully emotional, but I really feel for Q in this moment.
It reminds me of the Toho Godzilla movies, where Godzilla was sort of a hero in a way, and you never really like to see Godzilla get defeated. I really kind of wanted Q to fly off into the sunset and disappear.
Yeah,
I was really kind of sad when he falls to the ground, and that's it. We keep calling it a he, it's a she, but it
is a she, absolutely. Sometimes when you get to these third acts of these monster movies, it's usually when I check out. But it was done with emotion and heart. It made you hate the police more and more. Even though David Carradine, who is a hero in this movie, he's not perfect, is he? And certainly we get that at the end of the film, because literally you would think this is the end of the film, but it's got a little bit more to go, Jace, where we cut back to Michael Moriarty, who is now in an apartment trying to move on. And
Yep.
gets attacked by the Yeah, the bad guy.
The who are you?
Yeah, who are you kind of thing. And a great kind of emotional scene, and you're going, okay, this is where they're going to get his comeuppance, because he's a bad guy in a way, Michael Moriarty, and the moral code in films generally, you're a bad guy, you've got to die, you've got to pay the ultimate price. Nope, not this movie. This movie, he gets shot, the bad guy gets shot in the head by David Carradine.
Yes.
Who I have no idea why he's there.
Tell me again that the ending of this movie where they're shooting the Aztec priest did not make you think of Austin Powers. Why won't you die?
The fact that they linger afterwards too, because they kill him. He's dead on the bed. And then you've got 30 seconds of that awkward moment after you've killed someone. They're like, right, yep, well, that's done. And then they walk out to leave, and in the most bizarre ending, which I absolutely adore, a police officer, a detective, mind you, who's just murdered a bad guy, decides just to close the door and grab a do not disturb sign.
Yeah.
And hang it. And that's it.
Some poor maid is going to open up that door and just have the shock of her life.
Oh, look, I mean, you know, we know maybe he wasn't the best cop, but just to leave the murder. Say, we'll just lock it. We're checked out early. See you later.
The early 80s in New York was a completely different time.
Oh, but it was a perfect ending. Only to be superseded, and I don't think I've got the shot here, by what seems to be a damaged Sanctum Sanctorum. That's what I thought of straight away. Oh, I think Doctor Strange lives there. We get a beautiful shot at the end of another egg, Jason.
Yes. Q was two timing.
Now, what was fascinating about that egg shot is I think we both had the same reaction, didn't we?
Yes. You sent it to me, and I was like, oh, look, I put the same thing in my notes.
Same thing. We both went, hang on, isn't that the exact same ending to Super Mario Brothers? Yeah. Or Godzilla 1998?
I remember watching this, and whenever their egg cracked open, instinctively I just went, Yoshi!
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. This is the sequel to Q the Winged Serpent.
It's why the hungry boy.
I had such a great time with this movie. It was like, if there was a reason, if I ever questioned why I want to do this show, which I never do because I love this show, this is exactly why I wanted to do this show. Because we get to uncover gems like this, Jason, that we may have never ever watched. It may have just slipped us by throughout the years. And thanks to you and your bizarre list of movies that you've put up, we got to see this film.
Yes, this is a fun movie. It is self-aware enough to slyly wink at the audience and send up the monster genre, but it's not annoying. It's never annoying. It has a very wry sense of humor. This is a movie made of love. The directing and casting are great, and I even like the character arcs in this movie because Michael Moriarty, whenever you think he's going to die, he ends up living strictly because of the choices that he's made in this movie and the things that have happened to them. You know, I'm not gonna beg. I've never begged for anything in my life. You know, life has crapped on me all my life, and I've never asked for anything. I've never begged for anything. And you believe him. Yeah. You believe him, and that is another point whenever he unexpectedly takes the power away from the most powerful person in the scene, and it's just so well written. This has been my favorite movie, aside from maybe Friday the 13th Part 6, which that's me. I think Q the Winged Serpent is a B-movie masterpiece that more people should see.
I actually feel a responsibility, and I'm not joking here, to let people know about this film.
Absolutely. I'm going to be singing Q's praises for the rest of my life.
Absolutely, you know. And yeah, what can you say except Larry Cohen, you knocked it out of the park, buddy. You did such an incredible job with it.
This guy also made Maniac Cop, which is an amazing movie. Yes. Another great, fun B movie. And one of my personal favorites, which is actually on the list, I believe, The Stuff.
Yes, The Stuff.
The Stuff is great.
What was that? 1985, I reckon. The stuff.
It was 1985. Yes. Oh, and
yes.
Phone Booth, which is a Kiefer Sutherland and Colin Farrell movie that takes place entirely in a phone booth in New York City. This dude loves New York City. And a bunch of other movies that unfortunately did not quite become as famous as the other one. Oh, he did the remake of Body Snatchers, which was great, and a very underrated John Candy movie called Delirious.
Yeah, Delirious is an excellent film.
Yes, actually, which is, it's so funny. You have all these horror movies, and then you have John Candy's smiling face.
Yes. But Larry Cohen, I think, was even in one of Tarantino's films at one point in a role.
He probably was.
Yeah, like someone like Tarantino would just love this guy, wouldn't he? I mean, he would just.
Oh, absolutely. Let me see if I can find that for you, because I am fascinated with this dude.
Yeah.
I only see writer, producer, and director credits. I don't see any acting credits.
Okay, fair enough. But you know, either way, he actually made I love this film called Salem's Lot. I love it. It's 70s.
Yes, yes.
He did a straight-to-TV sequel to that, Return to Salem's Lot.
Yes, Return to Salem's Lot, yes.
Yeah, which I didn't mind at all as well. So, you guys, you've got to check this film out. Cue the Winged Serpent is our gift today to you guys. Go
Absolutely. Watch this film. If you love monster movies and you love police procedurals and always thought, hey, these two things would go great together, this is your Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Watch this movie. It is free on Tubi. So go watch it on Tubi. Tubi's not paying us for this shout out, but if they would like to, we're listening.
Yes, absolutely. And Tubi, can I just back that up? Tubi is a great place to find the films that are not on your normal streaming services. It's a great product, so check it out. And please sponsor us. All right, guys, that's it for this week's episode of the VHS Vault. I've had a great time. I know Murderbean there's having a great time with this episode, and I assume Jace is as well. So, all right, guys, until the next VHS Vault, I'm Jason.
This is Murderbean.
And we'll see you next time, guys.
Check out SpectrumSanctorum.net for all of our podcast merch. We have an entire merch store ready to give you all the things that you loved about our podcast. And get notified on all of our socials. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our Spectrum Sanctorum merch store. Follow us today and be sure to hit that bell when you're watching our YouTube videos so you can be notified of when a new episode releases.